Hey guys, Owen here from D20. I'm not going to apologize. I know it's been a while since I've put up any content on this channel. Some of the reasons you might be interested in knowing about, so I'll talk about those, but this isn't an apology video. I'm not interested in that. So firstly, the new World of Warcraft expansion came out a few weeks ago, Battle for Azeroth. So I've been headlong into that, been focusing on very little else. I've also been hitting the Pokemon Go pretty hard. I've been trying to push up to level 40. My plan is to hit level 40 in January next year, so I've got a pretty tight schedule of leveling up one level per month. I'm on level 36 now, so I'm on track. I'm getting there. But if you look there, you can add me as a friend. There's my trainer code on Pokemon Go. So if you add me as a friend, we can exchange gifts, and that helps us get some XP. So it'll help both of us. So if you wanna join me on my leveling up journey, that's a good way of doing that. Another thing that happened obviously was Comic-Con Africa. So we made the trip up to Joburg for that. That was really cool. We also did some work beforehand on cosplay. Sue and I did Rolo and Lagatha from Vikings because we wanted to have our photo taken with Travis Fimmel. Oh, I'm even wearing my Comic-Con Africa shirt. There's proof I was there. Travis Fimmel was really cool. He was a really cool guy, and he was tickled that we had our Vikings cosplay. That was really fun. But putting those costumes together was a lot of work, especially Sue. She hasn't really done anything like that before, so we put a lot of work in. So that also occupied a lot of our time in the last few weeks. Today I wanted to talk about something that it keeps coming up. It's a question I keep getting, and that is, have I played this game or that game, or why do I like this game over that game? So I wanted to talk about, I think it's interesting to discuss what it is about games that I like or dislike, or how is it that I'm attracted to the games that I'm attracted to. And it's something, as you might imagine, I've done a fair amount of thinking about. So I thought I'd share my thoughts with you. So there's one key thing. All right, let me list off the games that I'm really interested in. My top games. So it's World of Warcraft, it's Pokemon Go, it's Magic the Gathering, Heroclix, Star Trek, the customizable card game. Yeah, okay, those are the big ones. All right, so what even are those? All right, you might not be familiar. World of Warcraft. Okay, you have to know about World of Warcraft. It's a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Millions of people play it. Do a Google, as a YouTube search on World of Warcraft gameplay. I'm hoping to start streaming at some point in the next few months once I've been able to upgrade my hardware accordingly. That'll be a lot of fun. You can also add me. You can join our guild. It's one of these. There, that one. There. That's our Gilded page. That's my Gilded page. You can find me there. You can also come to our D20 community in Blizzard, and you can join our World of Warcraft guild from there if you like. That could be really cool. We'd love to play with you. So World of Warcraft is one important one. Magic the Gathering is a customizable card game. Here's some of my Magic cards. This is my my Elf Pauper deck. It's a lot of fun. Star Trek, the customizable card game, Star Trek CCG, is a lot like Magic, but it's based on Star Trek, as you might as the name tells you. And then what is Heroclix? That's the one you might not have heard of. It's a game that uses little plastic miniatures. It's also a tabletop game. So I've got Iron Man here. This is Earth 2 Batman. I've got Superman. There's Superman, and I've got Deadpool. And I'm not going to show you all of these because I have hundreds of Heroclix figures, and it's a really cool game. So what is the thing that all of these games have in common? And if I was to sum it up most succinctly, it's that they don't end. The thing that I like most about a game is that it, although you might be playing one specific session, so you're playing a particular Magic match, or a Star Trek CCG game, or a Heroclix match, or even a World of Warcraft dungeon, or even a whole World of Warcraft expansion or questline or whatever, and that might end. The game itself doesn't end at the end of that instance, at the end of that encounter. It keeps going. So with Magic the Gathering, you don't just have the one deck. I've got, I don't know, a dozen or so different decks that are ready to play at the moment. There are lots of different formats. There are different ways of playing, different styles of play. and there are constantly new expansions being released. Every few months, a new expansion is put out by Wizards of the Coast. One has just come out, Guilds of Ravnica. I haven't even seen the Guilds of Ravnica cards yet because I've been so busy with all this other stuff. But I'm really excited to give it a go and see what cards that I can get. There's always more stuff. There's always more content that's available in the game. And so there's always more to think about. There's always more to plan. You're constantly modifying your decks based on the new cards that are coming out. If you're playing the standard format, then you have to be rebuilding your deck every 12 to 18 months anyway, completely from the ground up. You can't just keep the same deck going on and on. I prefer more stable formats like Modern and Commander, but even those, there's new stuff coming out, and you need to think about those new cards and how they impact your deck over time. So in other words, there's stuff to do, there's stuff to think about with the game when you're outside of the game. The same is true of Star Trek CCG. So very similar rule set to Magic the Gathering, only it's a little bit more complicated, and it's based on Star Trek. Officially, Star Trek CCG was discontinued like 10, 12, something like that, years ago now, when Decipher Incorporated, the company that had the license to produce it, lost the license. I'm not sure. It's not entirely clear whether they lost the license or whether they gave it up or how all of that worked, but they stopped putting out the game. But a team of the game designers that worked for Decipher Incorporated, as well as some of the top fans of the game, formed a non-profit called the Continuing Committee, and they have acquired permission from CBS, Paramount, Decipher, whoever the relevant parties are, to continue putting out new expansion sets of Star Trek CCG on a few criteria. One of those is that they're not allowed to charge. So in other words, it's free to play. You can go to the trekcc.org website, download the new expansions on a PDF, take them to your local postnate, print them out, cut them up, sleeve them, and play with them. And it's all perfectly legal. And they're not allowed to compete with any other Paramount or CBS or licensed products, which as of now they don't. There is no currently a licensed paper CCG. They did launch a few months ago Star Trek Adversaries, which is an online digital card game, kind of like Hearthstone, but with Star Trek stuff. Obviously, it's not a direct competitor, so they're fine. As of right now, Trek CC, the continuing committee for Star Trek CCG, is still fine. So, in other words, the game, again, continues after the end of the game. Once you've finished playing your specific match, you can think about your deck, what cards you can use to modify your deck, and it's quite a different experience to Magic the Gathering, because one important limiting factor in Magic is, can I actually get hold of the physical card that I need in order to modify my deck? In Star Trek CCG, that's not a concern. The entire deck is available. The entire card pool is available to you, so it gives you a lot more freedom in how you customize your decks, which obviously significantly impacts the meta, and that's very interesting in how that works. Heroclix is another similar game. It's also collectible, so you collect these miniatures, you buy them in sealed booster packs, kind of like Magic the Gathering. Again, there are more expansions coming out all the time. There's 3 or 4 new expansions a year, and so now this brings me to another important factor. So one of the things that supports an ongoing game, so what I talked about, the game not ending at the end of the game, would apply to any CCG. So why is it Magic and Star Trek CCG in particular that I'm interested in? So Magic, the thing that drew me to Magic eventually, I resisted playing Magic for a long time, but I eventually started playing Magic because it's easy to play. And it's easy to play because there are so many other people that play it. Because it's the #1 TCG in the world at the moment, it usually is. For most of its history, it has been. There are so many other players around, and there are so many places where you can buy the cards that you can find a match, you can find a store, and it's not that hard. You don't have to go very far to find someone to play Magic the Gathering with, which wasn't true with Star Trek CCG. Star Trek CCG, even at its height, it was the #2 TCG at one point back in like 1997 or something like that. For a while, it was the #2 TCG in the world. Even then, it was really hard to find other people to play against. Our local Catan play group is maybe a dozen or so different people, of whom maybe you're lucky to get half of them in the room at any given play night, which, I mean, it's fun. They're a great group of people. Hi, Fritz. Hi, everyone. but it's not exactly a thriving gaming community, at least not in South Africa. And back in the old days, I used to run the tournament scene up in Joburg for the Star Trek CCGs. This we're talking again 10, 12, 15 years ago. And in those days too, not that big a group. We'd be lucky to get 10, maybe 12 people in the room for a monthly tournament, whereas that would be a reasonable sized Magic FNM at one store out of a dozen stores in the same city. So the scale is just, it's not even comparable. So although I prefer the depth of the gameplay in Star Trek CCG to Magic, the fact that it's so much easier to find an opponent in Magic makes that appealing. But the thing that they have in common is that they have this really deep lore, and that's another thing that allows the game to continue after the end of the match, is that there's this world of content beneath the mechanics of the game. With Magic the Gathering, obviously the gameplay comes first because that was the lore was built around the game. But there's been enough time now, enough expansions, and enough years and years of developing the lore that this entire fictional world has been constructed around the game, which has appeal in and of itself. I know people, not many, but there are some people who are interested in the Magic lore who have no interest in the game at all. So they used to put out Magic the Gathering novels. I think they still put out little novella pamphlet-y things online with every new expansion to advance the plot, and people would read that and follow that as a fantasy fiction series, and would have little to no interest in playing the game. And that's pretty telling. Star Trek CCG obviously taps into the entire Star Trek universe. Because of the legalities of that switch, unfortunately, Star Trek CCG doesn't include anything after the end of Star Trek Enterprise. So the 2009 movies, or at least the Kelvin Timeline trilogy, are not included, and also Star Trek Discovery are not included in Star Trek CCG. Probably will never be, because that content wasn't around when that agreement was struck between Paramount, CBS, and the continuing committee, and so it doesn't get included, unfortunately. But at least all that other legacy Star Trek content, everything from the original series up to the end of Enterprise, is all in there, and it taps into the canon of Star Trek in a compelling and meaningful way. And the game is designed in such a way so as to give you a feeling of how it feels to watch or even participate in an episode of Star Trek. So you've got the game is centered around the characters, as the show is. It's character driven. And then you have your ship, which then moves the characters around the board, as it does in an episode of Star Trek. The ship is the thing that carries them from one adventure to the next. And then they face adventures. They have to undertake missions, and once you've completed enough missions, then you've won the game. But that's not it. Now they have to face dilemmas, which are things that are thrown in their way, which might impede their progress in completing the mission, just like in any given episode of Star Trek. And in that way, it faithfully replicates the Star Trek experience. So it taps into that deeper lore, that deeper world, in a satisfying way. Now, Heroclix is interesting in a different way, because you'll notice that here I have, here we go, that's Superman, and that's Iron Man. And the one thing you know about both Superman and Iron Man is that they don't live in the same universe. And that's what's awesome about Heroclix. Heroclix is produced by WizKids, and they have licenses from Marvel, from DC, and from something like a dozen other different entertainment franchises, including Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, Dota, Street Fighter, I can't even remember all of them. I'd have to go look it up. BioShock, that's in there. Pacific Rim. So in other words, you can get figures that represent characters in all of these different universes, and you can fight them against each other. So you can fight Superman versus Iron Man. You know, you'll probably never see that on screen, but on the Heroclix table, you can see how that works. It's so much fun. It's insanely cool. And it doesn't end there. Like I said, Star Trek is one of the franchises, which means that you can... I wish I'd had it here with me to show you. It's in the next room. But you can fight Superman versus the Starship Enterprise. It sounds weird, but you can totally do that. The rules of the game allow it. There's this huge library of figures available, and it taps into not just one fictional lore, fictional universe, but multiple different ones, and allows them to interact in interesting and unexpected ways that you'll never see on screen, at least anything outside of a fan-made YouTube mashup thingy. Uh, Heroclix is really, really fun. And not only that, but also the game is well put together. The mechanics make sense. They're complicated. Sure, there's a steep learning curve in figuring out how to play Heroclix in a way that you've mastered the content. It took me like a year to really learn how to intuit my way through the rules. It's hard. It's not that hard. I'm exaggerating, but it is pretty hard. As these kinds of games go, Heroclix is pretty hard to learn. But once you've got it, it's so satisfying in a really fun way. One of my favorite things to do during the course of a game of Heroclix is to narrate the story. So I'm sitting across the table from my opponent, and he makes a move, and I tell the story about what's happening because I'm picturing it in my head in a comic book or a TV or TV show or movie or something like that. It's so much fun to interact with the narrative in that really interesting way, and coming up with fun ideas for how is it possible that Superman is able to fight the Starship Enterprise and they're both the same size. How does that work? Well, I have a theory about that as it happens. I might make a video about that. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it now. But again, you have this scenario where the game doesn't end at the end of the match, and you have this deeper lore that it taps into that allows you to keep thinking about the game and its related elements outside of the game. So once I've finished playing my game of Heroclix, if I feel like I haven't had enough Heroclix, I can go home and watch Justice League or Avengers Age of Ultron or something like that. I can continue that experience, let it run a little longer. Or alternatively, I can be watching one of my favorite TV shows, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that, and I can get an idea for a tactic that I can use in my next game of Heroclix with my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. team. It's really, really fun. And then the fourth one is World of Warcraft. Now, World of Warcraft obviously taps into the Warcraft mythos, which is huge. It was huge to begin with. When World of Warcraft started, it was already a well-established universe. There'd been 3 Warcraft games before that, along with a bunch of novels and comic books and various other things. And since World of Warcraft started, it's just grown and grown and grown. Each new expansion expands the world in all kinds of interesting ways and progresses the greater epic narrative. There's now a movie. There's even more novels, even more comics, all kinds of cool stuff. And the game itself is designed to never end. Effectively, I mean, you can argue that you finish the game of World of Warcraft when you've completed all of the achievements in the game, but as far as I'm aware, that's only ever been done by a handful of people, a handful of times throughout the world. It's designed to never really end. You keep playing, you choose your favorite way of playing, and you keep pushing it, and you keep getting rewarded for playing. So you keep unlocking new stuff, new content, new in-game rewards, all kinds of stuff, and that's what's really satisfying about it. It never really ends. You can keep thinking about it and keep engaging with it indefinitely. Pokemon Go is another interesting one. For that same reason. Now, before Pokemon Go came out, I used to play Ingress, which is a similar sort of game, also put out by Niantic. But the second that Pokemon Go came out, I deleted Ingress from my phone and switched to Pokemon Go. And here's the reason, is that Ingress, although they made some attempts at having a bit of a lore, there's kind of this weird, mysterious alien invasion type thing of alien energy leaking into our world, and there are secret agents and this kind of stuff. It really wasn't very deep. There wasn't a lot of content there. Whereas when Pokemon Go came out, very similar gameplay, different in certain important ways, but the feeling of the gameplay is really quite similar. The main difference is that it tapped into this broader Pokemon universe, this established a fictional mythos that already existed, and they're not trying to build it up through the game like they did with Ingress. And although I don't care about Pokemon at all, sorry guys, I don't care about Pokemon. People ask me what my favorite Pokemon is. I don't have an answer because I don't care enough about any one Pokemon to be able to pick a favorite. But the fact that there are all these Pokemon in the game, that there are these 300 or so different Pokemon so far that you can collect in the game, just the fact that they're collectible, that's what makes it engaging for me. You can think about the tactics of the game. You can think about customizing your teams to tackle a specific raid and that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing that I enjoy doing. So even though the mythos doesn't really interest me in and of itself, I found myself learning more and more about the Pokemon mythos through Pokemon Go, or at least to support my interest in Pokemon Go, because the more I've learned that the more you know about Pokemon, the easier it is for you to get through Pokemon Go. So again, I don't care about Pokemon, but I do care about Pokemon Go, and because of that, the combination of the fact that the game never really ends, even once you hit level 40, it keeps going. There's still more stuff to do once you hit maximum level. I'm not there yet, but I will be soon. But I know plenty of people who've hit level 40 and don't stop playing. You keep going. There's still more content to engage with. There's still more things to do once you hit the maximum level, and then there's this supporting mythos that goes along with it. So that's the kind of game that I like, and that's why I like those games. But what about the stuff that I don't engage with, the stuff that I don't play, the games I don't play, the games that I don't really enjoy? So let's talk about video games. So this is a thing that comes up on a weekly basis. Somebody asks me if I've played this or that game, and the answer is always no, and I always give the same answer. The answer is I'll play it one day when I finish World of Warcraft. And as I've said, the whole point of World of Warcraft is that it doesn't finish. Um, and that's kind of, although it's kind of meant as a joke, I'm also serious, because games that finish are not engaging enough. Now, I've played plenty of games. The biggest example that pops to mind when I'm thinking about this is Star Wars Force Unleashed on PS2. I had a PS2 back in the day, and I had a bunch of games on it, and one of the ones that I enjoyed the most was Star Wars Force Unleashed, the original. And I love that game. The gameplay was so compelling, and the content, the narrative, and it plugged into that larger universe and all of that stuff that I loved. And just as I was really getting into it and I started to feel like I was mastering my character, game ends. End of story. And then the game just told me, oh, no, it's fine. You can take your character that you've leveled up and you've advanced it. You can take it back to the beginning of the game and you can start again from scratch. You can just play through all those adventures again now that you've leveled up. That's dumb. That's not fun. Other games that end that I've played, things like God of War. I played the first two God of War games, both on PS2. Loved them. Thrilling. The design, the graphics, the gameplay, the way that you had those little mini game encounters, all that kind of stuff. Really, really fun. Then the game ends and it's over. Now what? Sure, you can go start again at the beginning, but we've already done that. Where's the rest of it? Where's the ongoing infinite gameplay? That was what I always wanted, and that's what I eventually found in World of Warcraft. And the same goes for games today. I see games advertised like Doom. The new Doom looks amazing. The new God of War, looks fantastic. The new Assassin's Creed, gorgeous. Beautiful graphics, looks like really compelling and thrilling gameplay, even interesting mythos and backstory integration. Awesome, except that they end. So you spend a weekend or a week playing the new God of War, and then it's finished, and then what? Then you have to wait 2 years for the next one. That's not enough for me. I need to be able to continue that content all the time, and it's okay if that content gets repetitive. I mean, at the moment we're busy going through in World of Warcraft again. We're busy going through the older progress. Our guild, we've teamed up with another local guild called Gary, and every Sunday night we're raiding together. If you want to raid with us, drop me a message here. This thing. Drop me a message here, and I'll see if I can get you into the group. But we're pushing for older progress, and sure, the content is repetitive because we're fighting the same bosses every week over and over again. But that's kind of what's rewarding about it, is that every time we fight the boss, we get a little bit better at it. We start working a little bit better at a team. We learn a little bit more about our characters. We have the chance of unlocking better gear, and that makes it that much easier to do it the time after that. And once we've worked our way through the entire raid, which is hard, it's really hard work. Once we've worked our way through all of it, around that time, that's when, well, firstly we go up to heroic level, and we can work our way through that, which is the same bosses, the same content, but now it's even harder. Once we get up to the end of heroic, around that time is when the next raid will be coming out. So now that's when we unlock the new content. So we don't have to wait 2 years for the next one to arrive. There's new content all the time. And that's what's so satisfying about World of Warcraft and that kind of game. Oh, another one I forgot to mention, of course, is Star Trek Online. But pretty much everything I said about World of Warcraft applies to Star Trek Online, and everything applied to Star Trek CCG also applies to Star Trek Online. So I don't want to be too redundant. I don't play STO all that often. I wish I had more time to play it, but World of Warcraft occupies so much of my time when I'm sitting in front of my PC that I don't get into STO that often. But when I do, I always enjoy it. It's a fun experience. Another category of games that I don't particularly like playing, and for the same reason, is board games. So, I don't know, like 2-3 years ago, I bought myself a copy of World of Warcraft Monopoly. And I like to say to people, I bought it because it's World of Warcraft, and I've never played it because it's Monopoly. It's sitting on my shelf. I've opened it. I wanted to see what the pieces look like, and then I closed the box and put it back on the shelf, and I've just moved it from shelf to shelf. I've never actually played the game because board games, they end, and then once you get to the end of the game, that's it. Then sometime later you open the box and then you play through it again, and that's it. And you can argue that maybe, okay, you're getting a little bit better at it each time. Sure, that's fair to say, especially with games that are relatively simple, like like something like Settlers of Catan. Of course, I have a copy of Star Trek Settlers of Catan that I've played a few times, and perhaps you could argue that I've got a little bit better at it. But games that have too much randomness in them, something like Ticket to Ride, I don't see the interest. I don't see the appeal, because now you've played through it a couple of times and then it goes back on the shelf and you never play it again. And you spend so much money buying that board game. Board games are expensive. I mean, sure, I'm spending more money, or at least if I had money available, I would be spending more of it on Heroclix than your average board game collector would be. But at least I'm investing in one system, and I'm expanding my ability to play with that one system in Heroclix. I'm deepening my experience with one game, and it's all kind of, I see it more as an investment into my experience of Heroclix than I do into any one specific game. And I don't understand this mentality to buy multiple board games. Like you buy a new board game every month, you'll play it once, maybe twice, goes on the shelf, and then you never play it again. I don't get it. I don't understand the appeal, because then once the game's over, what do you have to think about? What are you planning? What are you strategizing for? Where are you looking for inspiration on how to improve your next game? Are you going to Reddit forums or that kind of thing online to see what other people are doing with their version of that, with their Settlers of Catan, and modifying your strategy accordingly? I don't think so. I don't think that's a thing that many people do. I know that there is a competitive Settlers of Catan scene, and maybe I'm throwing that one. I'm judging Settlers of Catan unfairly, and I know also there's a competitive Ticket to Ride scene. Although don't ask me how that works. I don't even understand how that would be possible. Feel free to explain it in the comments below. I'd be interested to know how you have a game of competitive Ticket to Ride. Makes no sense to me. But there are plenty of other games. I'm not even going to mention them. I'm not going to list them. Games that end at the end of the game, I don't get it. What do you have? Where's the interest? And what are you losing sleep over if not these games? I mean, if I'm not sitting up at night thinking about my next Magic deck or my next Heroclix team or my next World of Warcraft raid encounter, then like, what do you guys think about? All right, okay, I'm kind of waffling now. I think I've gotten off my chest what I wanted to say today, and I've gone for almost half an hour, so I'm going to call it here. If you guys are interested in continuing this discussion, you can find me on the I need to get the hang of this. All right, there. You can find me in these places. Probably the best place to find me is Discord. We can have a chat about it there, or you can just drop a comment below. This is something that I think about a lot. So if it's something that you think about, I'd like to know what you think about it. All right, that's it for now. SWAT out.